All right, today we're going to be talking about a pretty complex idea called game theory. But before we jump in, I need to review what an oligopoly is, because a game theory is all about oligopolies. So an oligopoly is when 2 or 3 firms in a market make it difficult to enter the market. And we've talked about how Coke and Pepsi are kind of the only sodas you can get. AT&T, Sprint, and Verizon are kind of the only cell phone providers you can get. And how, at all times, the one company needs to be thinking about what is the other company doing. So Coca-Cola is like, what products is Pepsi putting out? Are they advertising? Are they buying a Super Bowl commercial? And at the same time, Pepsi's doing the same thing for Coke. They're always watching each other, saying, what is that company going to do? And how can I do something better? So the whole idea is called game theory. In game theory, and it is kind of like a game, it's just a little bit complex. Companies hire economists and market strategists to find what the dominant strategy for that company means. Dominant means they're on top. So what strategy is going to make their goods on top? The things that everyone wants. What's going to make them more attractive? What's going to advertise them better? What's going to make them more available to customers? What's going to make it so they make more money? They always have to be thinking, well, what's the other company doing? So we need to understand 2 definitions here. Dominant strategy. Dominant strategy is the best move for the company, regardless of what the other companies choose. Sometimes companies are just going to win no matter what, and that's their dominant strategy. Okay? Nash equilibrium, named after an economist, is the idea that there's an optimal choice. We can look at a game theory matrix, which I'm going to show you in a second, and know what's going to happen, who's going to choose what, and why. Okay? Sometimes game theory matrices, sorry, there's a car. Game theory matrix don't have a Nash equilibrium, but all of the ones that I'm giving you do. Okay? So it's basically the part of the matrix, the decisions by the company that we know are going to happen because we've looked at all the options, okay? So we're going to skip that one and move on to this more simple example, okay? So this is a game theory matrix. We've got 2 companies, Miss B's Bagel and Keller's Cronuts. They sell very similar things, breakfast pastries, okay? And they've got 2 options, and the 2 options are always in the matrix. They can advertise. This company can advertise. This company can advertise. Or they cannot advertise. This company cannot advertise. This company cannot advertise. And it's not always advertising, but that's a real quick example for you. So are they going to make money if they advertise or not advertise? Advertise or not advertise? The purple numbers I've given you are company 1. The red numbers I've given you are company 2, my Cronuts, okay? So what we need to do now is figure out, oh my goodness, these cars are crazy. We need to figure out if one company has a dominant strategy, if both companies have a dominant strategy, and if there is a Nash equilibrium. So let's go through what we're supposed to do for each one. We've already talked about how 2 businesses are on the top and the side. Both sell the same goods with similar prices. We're looking at breakfast foods, okay? Then the 2 strategies. For our matrix, it's can they advertise or do they not advertise, okay? Then the numbers in the box often pertain to how much money the companies will make if they make the decision in that box and the other company makes that decision in that box. So if Keller's Cronuts decides to advertise and Miss B's Bagels decides to advertise, this is how much money they will make, okay? $600 for Miss B's, $300 for Keller's Cronuts. If my Cronut company, decides to advertise, okay, but Miss B's Bakery decides not to advertise, I make $400 and she makes $200. So the purple numbers belong to her, the red numbers belong to me, okay? So that's the next part. If they're not colored, which they might not be on your paper when I print this, the first number belongs to the leftward companies and the second belongs to the top company. So to the left goes with this one, to the right goes with the top company. Left goes with this one, right goes to the top company if they're not always colored, okay? So now we need to think about one company at a time, one column or row at a time. What are their 2 options if the other company chooses something? which number is more beneficial for the company we're focusing on. So let's focus completely on Miss B's bagels over here. So we're going to look at what Miss B can do. She can advertise, which is this row, or not advertise. Let's look at her options. And to do that, we're going to kind of get rid of the other row. So let's look at her options when it comes to advertising and not advertising when the other company, my company, does advertise. So let's not even look at this box. We're not even paying attention to it, okay? So if I advertise, what are Miss B's options? She can advertise and make 600 or not advertise and make 200. Well, obviously 600 is bigger than 200, so she should do this option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pen or my pencil or my highlighter, and I'm going to highlight that 600 because that's her best option in this column, okay? So let's pretend that Miss Keller's company decides not to advertise. What should Miss B's company do? So let's just get rid of this one completely. We're not even going to look at it, whatever. If Miss Keller's Cronuts decides not to advertise, but Miss B's Bagels has to make a decision. Should they make a decision to advertise and make 300 or not advertise and make 400? Well, I would say they should probably not advertise and make 400. So let's take our highlighter and highlight that one. Okay? So stop right there and let's talk about this. She, based on what Miss Keller's Cronuts does, Miss B will either advertise or not advertise. Her numbers, her best strategies are not in the same column. So that means she has no dominant strategy. Let's go back to the matrix here. Do the companies have a dominant strategy? An action they should make no matter what the other company does. No matter what Miss Keller's Cronuts does, Miss B's Bagels has to adjust to advertise or not advertise. So she does not have a dominant strategy. And the way we know that is they will have a number that you highlighted for that company in the same half of the matrix if they have a dominant strategy. And these are in different halves of the matrix, okay? So she does not have a dominant strategy. She doesn't always advertise and make money. She has to change her entire situation based on what Miss Keller is deciding to do, okay? So now let's look at what Miss Keller should do based on what Miss Cheyenne, Miss B, is doing, okay? So the way that we do this is we have to think a little bit differently. So now we're looking at whether Miss B is advertising or not advertising. So now we're looking at rows, not columns, rows this time. So let's pretend that Miss B is going to advertise. She's going to advertise. She's not even thinking about this option. So let's get rid of this option and find out what Miss Keller should do. So now if we know Miss B is going to advertise, what should Miss Keller do? Should she advertise or should she not advertise? Which one has more money? Not advertising has more money. And that's what she wants to do. So I'm going to pick a different color and highlight that so that I remember. Okay? So if, just a recap, if Miss B chooses to advertise, Miss Keller should not advertise because that would make her more money, 400 versus 300. Okay? So let's now pretend that Miss B has decided to not advertise. So let's get rid of this advertise row just momentarily. Just pretend it's not there. Okay? If Miss B decides not to advertise, should Miss Keller advertise and make 400 or not advertise and make 500? Well, 500 is bigger than 400, so I think we should go for the 500 option there. So I'm going to take my highlighter and highlight 500. Okay? Do you see the difference now between Miss B's strategy, where she had no dominant strategy, and Miss Keller's strategy, where she now has a dominant strategy? No matter what Miss B chooses, advertise or not advertise, I should always choose to not advertise because that's how I'm going to make the most money. Okay, and I know that because in my game theory matrix it says that's an action they should take no matter what. They will have a number that you highlighted in the same half of the matrix. Here's the half of the matrix, okay, and I highlighted both numbers in that half. All right. Now the last bit right here. Does the matrix have a Nash equilibrium? This would mean both companies will choose the same option no matter what. That quadrant holds the best strategy for both companies. So, do we have a quadrant that both numbers are highlighted? Yes, it is quadrant C. And here's what Nash equilibrium means. We can predict that in this whole scenario, this quadrant is what is going to happen. And the reason why is if Miss B's economists, her strategists, looked at this game theory and figured it out, they would see that Miss Keller is always going to not advertise. That is her dominant strategy. So that's what she's going to do no matter what, because I'm going to make money no matter what that way. Okay? So Miss B's economist, her company knows that I'm always not going to advertise. So what should she do knowing that I'm not going to advertise? What should she do knowing that I'm not going to advertise? We already highlighted that. We said she should not advertise. And that's what she's going to choose because she knows I'm going to choose this option. So she's got to choose between 400 or 200. And she's definitely going to choose 200 or 400. So we know that the Nash equilibrium, the choice that is going to happen is quadrant C. Okay? I'm going to be uploading another video with another example of this later on. I know this is very confusing, but it's okay. It's fun once you figure out how to do it. It's called game theory. All right, bye guys. All right, so we're going to look at another game theory example, and hopefully I won't confuse you as much. We're going to be taking a look back at our notes about how to read a game theory matrix as we go along. So, just to review, how to read a game theory matrix. What is on the box? We have two businesses on the top and on the side, and then we have the matrix in between them. So, in my example, company 1 is on the side, and it's Keller's Cakes and Cookies, so it's a sweet shop. And then company 2 is Miss B's Bakery, and it is also a sweet shop, okay? So that's the first part. Then there are two strategies that they can choose to use. So let's take a look at those two companies. What strategy are they going to have? Okay, at both of their shops, they're deciding whether or not to hold a kids' cookie class where kids come and decorate cookies and learn how to bake and those sort of things. It's a good community outreach sort of thing. And it makes them some money and gets them customers for life, kids that want to learn how to decorate cookies, okay? So Miss B's Bakery can either hold a kids' cookie class or not have a kids' cookie class. Keller's Cakes and Cookies can either hold a kids' cookie class or not hold a kids' cookie class, okay? So we finished these two. Check and check. All right, the numbers in the boxes pertain to how much money the companies will make if they make the decision in that box and the other company makes the decision in that box. So let's take a look here. The purple numbers, and on your paper, they might not be purple, they're the ones to the left, belong to the company to the left. Okay, so the numbers on the left belong to the company on the left. On my screen, they're purple, okay? The numbers on the right pertain to the company on top. Okay, so these numbers, the reddish, pinkish numbers, pertain to Miss B's Bakery. Okay, and then what's in the box is what will happen if this strategy happens and this strategy happens, or this strategy happens and this strategy happens. Okay, so remember, red belongs to here, purple belongs over here. The right number belongs to the top company. The left number belongs to the left company. Okay? So we're done with that part. We understand that. Now we need to do the hard part. Think about one company at a time. One column or row at a time. Look at their two options in regards to what the other company might do. Remember, this is oligopoly. We got to decide what we're going to do based on what the other company's going to do. And we got to try and sell the most. Which number is more beneficial for the company we're focusing on? Let's focus on company 1's options first, okay? So let's take a look at what company 1 has to offer. If Miss B's Bakery, so they're looking at what Miss B's Bakery is doing. Keller's Cakes and Cookies is looking at what Miss B's Bakery is going to do. Let's say we know B's Bakery is going to offer a kids' cookie class. Let's just get rid of this option completely. Let's just pretend it's not there. We know Miss B is going to offer this. So what should Miss K do? Should she, and the purple numbers are her, Since we know Miss B's gonna offer it, what should Miss K do? Should she offer the kids cookie class and make 200, or don't offer the class and make 500? Well, 500 makes more money than 200, so we should do the 500 option, right? So I would take my highlighter and highlight 500. All right, so that's one of our options. Well, let's pretend that Miss B is definitely not holding a class. So let's get rid of the class thing. We know Miss B is not holding a class, so we're just looking at this box. If Miss B is not holding a class, should Miss K's Cakes and Cookies hold a class and make 600, or not hold a class and make 500? What's the best option? Well, 600 is greater than 500, so she should probably hold the class in that situation. So let's get our highlighter and highlight this number. Okay? So we can already tell here that Miss Keller's Cakes and Cookies has no dominant strategy. How do we know that? Oh, right here. An action they should make no matter what the other company does. They will have a number that you highlighted for that company in the same half of the matrix. Let's look at the matrix. Well, depending on what Miss B does, cookie class or no cookie class, I had to change my options. So I do not have a dominant strategy. I do not have a strategy that I should do no matter what Miss B does, because I could lose out some money if I just pick one randomly. Okay? So company number 1 does not have a dominant strategy. So let's take a look at Miss B's bakery now. Let's look at her options. So if she wants to hold this cookie class, okay, or she knows that I'm going to hold the cookie class, what are her options then? So let's get rid of this one. Let's pretend this one doesn't exist right now. If Miss B knows I'm going to hold a cookie class, should she hold a cookie class and make 400, or not hold a cookie class and make 300? Well, 400 is greater than 300, so I think she should do that option, right? She should hold the cookie class. Very good. Okay? Now, let's pretend that she knows that I am definitely not going to hold a cookie class. Then my bakery's not going to do it. So let's get rid of it. Pretend it doesn't exist, okay? And now take a look at her options. If I decide I'm not holding a class, what should she do? Should she hold a cookie class and have $300, or not have a cookie class and make $100? Well, 300 is a lot more than 100, so I think she should go for this option. Okay, so I'm going to take my highlighter and highlight that option. You see how this one is different? Miss B, because we highlighted these numbers, those were her best options based on what I was going to do, cookie class or no cookie class. No matter what, she should hold a cookie class. Her dominant strategy should always hold a kids' cookie class. And how do we know that? That is the action that she should take no matter what the other company does, no matter what my cookie decision is. And she had a number that we highlighted for that company in the same half of the matrix. You see, it's on this side. It's on the same side. Okay, so she should hold a cookie class. Okay? Now, is there a Nash equilibrium? Remember, the Nash equilibrium means that both companies will choose that option. We can predict what they're going to choose. And we know because one quadrant holds the best strategy for both companies. So is there one quadrant on this matrix that both companies choose? Yes, it's this one. It is quadrant B. Okay, and the letter was right here, so that's how I knew. Quadrant B. And this is because Miss Keller has looked at this matrix, and she knows no matter what, Miss B is going to hold a cookie class. So if Miss B, no matter what I choose, is going to hold a cookie class, I got to make my decision based off of that. And my best option in that scenario was this $500. So we both end up choosing this quadrant. You see how one impacts the other? And that is a matrix. We found out that company 1 has no dominant strategy. There was no highlighted part in any half of the matrix. Okay? We found out that company 2, Miss B's Bakery, should always hold a kids' cookie class. No matter what my options were, she was going to make money if she held a cookie class, okay? And then the Nash equilibrium, we can predict what's going to happen because we both landed in this box, okay? All right, hopefully you understood that example. Message me if you need some help, okay?